Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor? Asked God. I read that question nearly every Shabbat morning, right before the Micha Mocha, and I read it pretty much the way I would read anything else in the prayer book. My delivery, moderated, intentional but nothing more, belies the rage I feel as I read. Because frankly, I have a lot of rage about the brokenness of our world and the ways we allow it to remain broken. So when I get to this phrase in the prayer book every single week, I want to scream. I want to shout. It's totally wrong to crush people, to crush human spirits, to deny civil and human rights, to violate the sanctity of bodies. It's totally wrong to oppress the poor. But it's also wrong to scream. Or is it? Peter Himmelman is best known as an alternative rock musician, although he is not especially famous. He's also an artist, a consultant on creativity, and a writer. A few weeks ago, he wrote a column describing a time he was invited to speak to a group of high school students about the difference between objective and subjective morality. Objective morality being true in all circumstances, and subjective morality being something that changes based on circumstances. So he did an exercise with the students, and he noticed a pattern. They couldn't or they wouldn't identify right from wrong. So he improvised a scenario to test his observation. And this is the transcript of what happened. He said, I asked for a volunteer to come forward and be part of an impromptu thought experiment. An energetic young woman bounded down from the top bleacher. Let's start, I said. But keep in mind that although what I'm about to say is going to sound a bit harsh, it's just a game. Great, she replied. I'm ready. I began this way. A robber has just broken into your home. Is this right or wrong? The young woman gave the same almost robotic response I'd been hearing all morning. I can't judge. I upped the ante. The robber has tied your mother to a chair. She's very frightened. Again, she gave the same sort of answer. I can't use the word wrong, I just can't. I'm a little embarrassed to admit that I went as far as I did next with a group of high school students, but okay. So now the robber walks up behind your mother and kills her with a knife from your kitchen. By this time, the students were on their feet, screaming out a host of things I couldn't make out. And she said, I can't judge. I can't judge. But here we are on Yom Kippur, also known as Yom Hadin, Judgment Day. A major task of the day is evaluating, judging our behavior, values, and speech, and then making up our minds to course correct if we find that we are not where we would like to be, that we aren't living with as much integrity, intention, empathy, patience as we would like to be, that we aren't living our best selves. I actually think we're squeamish about talking this way, of sounding judgy. Even on Yom Hadin, we might be like those high school students who just couldn't get themselves to say that something was wrong. Who here has said, who am I to judge? But Jewish tradition is clear. Not everything we say and do is okay. On Yom Kippur, we say out loud in our communal prayers and silently to ourselves, not everything I said was okay. Some of it was wrong, careless, rude. The list goes on. We say not everything I did was okay. Some of it was selfish, lazy, dishonest, cowardly. The list goes on. Jewish tradition teaches that not everything we say and do is okay, and then gives us tshuva, an opportunity to repair, to return. Rabbi B'nai Lappi of Svara, a traditionally queer yeshiva, calls tshuva the star of the High Holy Day season. It is a practice of recognizing whom we've harmed and repairing the harm, addressing where we might have fallen short in becoming the people we want to be, and returning to right relationship with ourselves, with God, and with others. Tshuva happens through confession, remorse, forgiveness, and a sincere commitment to change our ways. Our Machzor, our High Holy Day prayer book, is filled with readings and prayers that help us on this quest. While most of us are familiar with tshuva, there is another tool for change, a less well-known one, tochacha, translated literally as rebuke. The idea of tochacha comes from chapter 19 of Leviticus, what we call the Holiness Code, the source of many of our most powerful and beautiful ethical teachings. The text in Leviticus reads, Lo tisna et achicha bilvavecha. You should not hate your kinsfolk in your heart. Hocheach tochiach et amitecha. You should surely rebuke your friend. V'lo tisa alav chet, so that you do not sin because of him. V'hafta l'reacha kamocha. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. The tochacha part of that is, you should surely rebuke your friend, which could at first sound kind of judgy, which is uncool. And two, when we feel judged, we get defensive. We shoot the messenger, especially if the messenger is clumsy or harsh. People are so worried about judginess, both judging and being judged, that most of the time we avoid anything that could be considered even the least bit judgmental. It's safer to let things go, to leave things unsaid. So why would we choose to put ourselves in the position of doing something so fraught? Well, for one thing, tochacha doesn't have to be judgy. Or maybe it's judgy, but with a heaping side of empathy. Tochacha is meant to be a gentle, compassionate, even loving way to support or encourage someone, a friend, to make much needed change. One rabbi calls it compassionate critique. An educator poetically describes tochacha as this: the beauty of reality staring us squarely in the face. Like a mysterious mirror, a rebuke reveals how we negotiate our delusions in their proximity to the ever-unfolding truth. Meant to be a gift that inspires transformation, tochacha, when received well, demonstrates that our yearning for spiritual evolution is stronger than our fear of change. And I would add to that, our fear of criticism, too. A tochacha asks us to listen so that we might fully absorb what we hear and then get busy clearing away the muck. The purpose of tochacha is to point out an important truth that someone just seems to keep missing. So I want to go back to that paragraph from Leviticus, because those three phrases are linked together inextricably and logically. So the first part, Lo tisna et achicha bilvavecha. You shall not hate your kinsfolk in your heart. Tochacha is a way to avoid resentment. Holding a grudge is mostly damaging to ourselves. Don't hate anyone in your heart. Hocheach tochiach et amitecha. You should surely rebuke your friend. V'lo tisa alav chet, so that you not sin because of them. The Talmud teaches Kol Yisrael aravim zeh bazeh. All of Israel are responsible for and to one another. This principle is the basis of communal responsibility in Jewish law. For better and worse, we are tied up in each other's destiny. We should want others to do tshuva, because at the very least, what happens to one of us has an effect on everyone else. If our neighbor has done something wrong, we should not think that it won't impact us, because it will. It will bother us so much that we'll probably gossip about them, and we might even take vengeance against them. Or we could influence another to adopt sinful or dangerous behavior. V'hafta l'reacha kamocha. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. We want to be better. We want the same for our neighbor. Tochacha is meant to be offered with genuine concern for another human being. Some of you might remember that old but still relevant slogan from the 1980s, friends don't let friends drive drunk. Well, real friends tell each other when they're making grave or potentially serious mistakes. It's only fair to acknowledge here that even with our best intentions, tochacha can be tricky. And so it comes with a warning label and some suggestions for best practices. A conversation recorded in the Talmud reveals that rabbis recognized the potential perils of tochacha centuries ago. Rabbi Tarfon said, "In this generation, there is no one capable of rebuking." Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said, "In this generation, there is no one capable of receiving rebuke." Rabbi Kiva said, "In this generation, there is no one who knows how to rebuke." In this generation, there is no one who knows how rebuke ought to be worded. So they knew it was hard. Years ago, I totally failed in my tochacha efforts. Not once, but twice. On 2 separate occasions, I watched good friends go down ethically precarious paths. I cared about them, both of them, deeply, and I really wanted them to be better. I actually wasn't wrong. Years later, they both admitted it, but oh my goodness, my words and my delivery, they were way off. My friends thought I was being judgy, and it took years, at least 15 years, to repair the relationships. Honestly, they will never be the same as they were before my missteps. I learned the hard way how tochacha requires, it is absolutely essential, that we be kind and non-confrontational. I might have missed those details. I might also have come across as self-righteous. I don't know for sure, but I do know now that humility is a key element of a good tochacha. We are neither better nor worse than our friends. It is also essential that we do tochacha privately. Public shaming is off limits in Judaism. Our rabbinic sages taught that humiliating a person is akin to murder. Because again, the whole point of tochacha is to help someone do tshuva. People don't change when they're disparaged or embarrassed. Some people change, or people change, when they can recognize what they've done wrong and can see a path forward. Language and trust make a difference. I heard a colleague talk about becoming sober after a couple years of heavy drinking. His wife said to him, "I'm worried about your drinking." No accusations, no drama, no list of all the ways he had been disappointing her. Because they already trusted and loved one another, because he knew she had his back, that she cared deeply about his well-being, he was able to hear her, and he did stop drinking. Another colleague wrote about a friend he called a master of the art of tochacha. He wrote, she would say, "Darling," followed by a pitch-perfect observation of some misstep or impoverished sentiment, without too much cushion or too much edge. And then she would seamlessly shift gears to another topic. And he said this, "No matter how deeply her observation cut, I felt seen, I felt accepted, I felt supported and encouraged to become my best self. It was as if she had helped me to pull out a stubborn splinter that I alone couldn't quite reach." What would happen if we invited tochacha, gentle, careful, loving tochacha, into our relationships and into our institutions, even into this congregation? I believe that we can build a better, more inclusive, more welcoming, and more just and compassionate world. We just have to be willing to take a couple risks and to be very careful. This could look like going over with a family member privately that a remark they made was hurtful and explaining why. Helping a friend see how their drinking or their gambling or their infidelity is hurting their family or themselves. Proposing productive ways to channel anger and indignation to someone who needs that. Modeling respectful ways to complain to a manager, a server, or a neighbor. Being open to, even welcoming, the good intentions of trusted members of the family, friends, and colleagues. At the beginning of these remarks, I admitted that I have a lot of rage about the brokenness of the world and our collective indifference to it. I do understand that screaming about it would be off-putting and divisive and make me look like the problem. So if I ever get to that place, I hope someone will offer me tochacha, gently and in private. As we head into Yom Kippur and the new year ahead, may each one of us cultivate discernment and the courage to acknowledge the difference between right and wrong, because there is a difference between right and wrong. May we remember that we all do better when we all do better. May we be emboldened to practice tochacha as an opportunity for connection and as a cornerstone of healthy relationships and a strong community. May we trust our neighbors to tell us the truth lovingly, and may we be open to accept rebuke with calm consideration. And I especially want to just underline that idea that it's an opportunity for connection. If I care enough about you to tell you something hard, and you care enough about me to tell me something hard, then that gives us a real, deep, and important connection. When we try all these things, then we may be confident that our path to one of Judaism's most sought-after spiritual destinations, shalom, wholeness, peace, is well paved. Good Yom Tov.